Well, welcome back once again to another Johnny Torch program. Live program once again this afternoon. We're going to just do a quickie show today. Only one topic. I wanted to see if I can get on here again one more time before the Christmas holiday, and I am extremely busy. As a matter of fact, I'm probably not even going to be able to watch the Patriots this afternoon. The game has already started because I've got shopping to do. Oh, man, a lot of work, and I am extremely tired. But I want to make sure that we talk about this before it becomes completely old news. As I'm sure you're aware, unless you've been living under a rock, the Snyderverse is no more. And I say that not completely thrilled about the fact that it is no more. Oh, what a long, wild ride it has been, right? I mean, no more than, what was it, about 2 or 3 months ago, we heard that Henry Cavill was back. Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson had his Black Adam project in the works for literally over a decade. I honestly, I think it was about 15 years. And he had promised the return of Henry Cavill's Superman. For whatever reason, and I don't know if this will come out at some point, the truth, the facts, but either they didn't want Cavill back or Cavill was playing hardball. He wanted more input to the character. He wanted to make sure it was full of hope and optimism as Superman was supposed to be, which he didn't get to represent too well in the Snyderverse. Or it was just that they were not willing to pay him. They were not willing to go forward with him, although they seem to be going forward with other Snyder-related projects, such as Wonder Woman and Aquaman getting sequels. They were still committed to the Ezra Miller Flash solo film. So again, it was difficult times, and we waited and we waited. And again, for me, for my part, I have to admit that I was not a fan of the Zack Snyder verse, which is why this is not crushing news. But we'll get more to that in a moment. But James Gunn being the heir apparent. Now, we talked about this before. I don't really have any more faith in James Gunn than I did in Zack Snyder, to be totally honest, because it's a case of probably taking the franchise in the complete opposite direction, and that's probably not any better than the Snyder direction, which was a completely dour and, lacking enthusiasm and optimism. And so James Gunn, honestly, he kindly only knows how to make one movie. And we've seen it in Guardians of the Galaxy. We've seen it in Suicide Squad. I don't know that I trust him to completely reorient the entire DC universe. Now, if he wants to take on Suicide Squad and some, related projects, he's got Peacemaker out and so on and so forth. That's all well and good. I don't know that he's the guy to take Superman and do something with him that is going to be conducive to what the fans want. Let me put it that way. Now, before we get any further into that, because that's a whole other ball of wax, but we've got Henry Cavill, of course. Well, let's go back even further than that. The first inkling of information we got was that Wonder Woman 3 was not going forward. And we got a statement from Patty Jenkins, and I'll try to get through this here. Patty Jenkins' statement, she says, I'll cut to the chase. When there started being backlash about Wonder Woman 3 not happening, the clickbait false story was that it was me that killed it or walked away, starting to spread. This is simply not true. I never walked away. I was open to considering anything asked of me. It was my understanding there was nothing I could do to move anything forward at this time. DC is obviously buried in changes they are having to make, so I understand these decisions are difficult right now. She goes on, of course, to praise Gal Gadot, Linda Carter, and the rest of them. So we find out that Wonder Woman 3 is not going forward, and it sounded like to me at the time that they were just going to take the franchise in a different direction. Perhaps they were trying to rebrand it as maybe a new Justice League, that there would be some kind of new opportunities. But then, coming hard on that statement, we had Henry Cavill's statement, which is a little bit shorter, and I'll read that. He said, "I have just had a meeting with James Gunn and Peter Safran, and it's sad news, everyone. I will, after all, not be returning as Superman. After being told by the studio to announce my return back in October prior to their hire, this news isn't the easiest, but that's life. The changing of the guard is something that happens. I respect that. James and Peter have a universe to build. I wish them and all involved with the new universe the best of luck and the happiest of fortunes. For those who have been by my side through the years, we can mourn for a bit, but then we must remember Superman is still around. Everything he stands for still exists, and the examples he set up for us are still there. My turn to wear the cape is past, but what Superman stands for never will. It's been a fun ride with you all, onwards and upwards." So, again, when James Gunn, now let me read James Gunn's original statement here on Twitter. He says, "Peter and I have a DC slate ready to go, which we couldn't be more over the moon about. We'll be able to share some exciting information about our first projects at the beginning of the new year." He then went on to say, "Our story for the new Superman film will be focusing on an earlier part of Superman's life, so the character will not be played by Henry Cavill. But we had a great meeting with Henry, and we're big fans and talked about a number of exciting possibilities to work together in the future." Now, again, up until this point, I thought that maybe they were just going to take it into another direction with, you know, sort of branching out into different avenues. But apparently, from Henry's comments, he's been completely exercised of this entire role and this entire franchise. Because I thought what they meant was that maybe he would get something going forward in the future. Maybe that Black Adam project, the Superman versus Black Adam project, was still on the table. Oh, at least according to Henry, no, that's not the case. So we're getting another Superman movie. James Gunn's going to write it. Again, I'm not the most comfortable with that notion, but he was quick to point out that it's not going to be an origin story. This is something else that, of course, really rubbed people the wrong way, was hearing that we were going to have yet another origin story for Superman. And he put those fears to rest by saying categorically it's not an origin film. And I don't have the tweet in front of me, but he did go on to say that Clark Kent is not going to be meeting everybody for the first time. I don't know where that tweet is, but I did see that, where he did deny that this is a Clark Kent origin, where he first comes to the planet and meets Lois and Perry and all that stuff. So this is going to be a rebooted universe. Now, another thing that's happened is the Batman universe, the Reeves Batman universe, is apparently going to remain untouched. Now, that disappoints me probably the most of all, because I didn't like, obviously, full disclosure, I haven't seen the Batman. I didn't like the direction they were taking it in. I didn't like the race changes of the characters. I didn't like that they were doing it super realistic again. We've gone down that avenue so many times before. We've done it most recently too with Nolan. The Snyder Batman wasn't particularly fantastical. I mean, there was the dark side characters and this and that, but so I was really hoping we would get into something more closer to the comics with Batman, but apparently that's not on the table. It's going to continue to be the Reeves-verse Batman, for lack of a better term. But then, of course, Gunn clearly specified that he's not going to be brought into the new DC universe proper. The scuttlebutt, again, this is, I guess, rumor. I don't really know if there's any confirmation on this, but also that the Suicide Squad universe is still going to remain intact. They're not starting over with that, which, again, is strange because that's sort of got one foot in the Snyderverse, the Ayerverse / Snyderverse as well. The difficulty in that is that we still have, Viola Davis and Margot Robbie still playing characters that started in the Snyderverse / Ayerverse. Now, that doesn't bother me because I'm a big fan of Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. And of course, Viola Davis has done a fantastic job with Amanda Waller. But my concern really is why is it okay for them and not okay to try to do something with Henry Cavill? Now, again, I really wanted to see them try to do something with this emerging Black Adam character. Now, I realized that the Black Adam movie was textbook mid. I mean, it really wasn't anything special. But The Rock tried to spin it as well on, well, it's sort of a first step in a ongoing story that's sort of, you got to give it time to build. And I think that's what The Rock really wanted to do with this franchise. He wanted to build it into a Black Adam 2 and then probably culminate in a Black Adam 3, which would have him fight Superman. Apparently, he was asked a cameo in Shazam 2 and declined. And I don't know. I mean, I don't know exactly what he would have done in that, but he apparently has no interest, or had no interest while he was still attached to the franchise, of appearing in Shazam. That's just the way it goes. All right, we have some comments here from the chat. Hunter Iggy, one of our friends in the chat, says, Johnny Torch, here's my fan casting for Wonder Woman, Isa Gonzalez, and for Batman, Jacob Elordi, for Superman, David Krensweat, and for Cyborg, John Boyega, and Flash Ty Sheridan. I got to admit, I don't recognize a lot of those names. Obviously, I know John Boyega. He would probably be really good. And Ty Sheridan sounds familiar. I think I know him. But yeah, I'll check those out and I'll find out what I think about those. Let's see. Scott Eastwood is Captain Atom. Austin Butler is Green Arrow. And James Marsden is Hal Jordan. Yeah, I like James Marsden as Hal Jordan. Everybody's kind of been suggesting him for a couple of years now. And it's true because he's sort of like the grizzled veteran of the Green Arrow, the Green Lantern Corps. I can really see him playing that role really well. So yeah, that's something I'd like to see as well. So now we got a lot of people going forward, sort of going, well, what are they releasing these films for? What do we want to see Aquaman 2 for? What do we want to see The Flash for? What do we want to see, what was the other one? Blue Beetle. Which Blue Beetle, I don't understand that at all, because Blue Beetle, that's like its own thing. That's just started. I don't really think that's going to be affected going forward. I'm pretty sure they're going to keep doing Blue Beetle movies. But the Snyderverse is what's getting the axe here. Now, a lot of people are saying, well, why isn't, they're saying Henry Cavill has been fired before Ezra Miller. No, trust me. Ezra Miller has been fired probably before any of these actors were given the axe and before any of them were notified. I think they already knew this Flash movie was going to end in such a way that they were going to go with the soft reboot. Now, of course, Ezra Miller is box office poison. Amber Heard is box office poison. People have been complaining about them for well over a year. So it's kind of the no-brainer that they were going to probably end after these films. Now, maybe people would have been satisfied with just recasting Amber Heard's Mera. I don't know. I mean, the hope would be that James Gunn would recast these characters more accurately. I don't really see that's going to happen, though. I mean, Hollywood is still Hollywood, and we're still in the age of woke, and we're going to have the recasts. We're still, I'm expecting a Black Lois Lane. I'm expecting a Latina Superman or something. You know what I mean? It's just going to be that way. I imagine there's going to be a Latina Wonder Woman. We've got to reach across the aisle and, probably a Asian, I don't know, Barry Allen, whatever. We're not going to get the accurate casting that we didn't get with Snyder. I mean, the most accurate casting was honestly Henry Cavill. That's why I think everybody wanted to see Henry Cavill come back, because he was really literally off the page Clark Kent / Superman. The problem is, like I said, going back to that before I leave that subject, people are acting like, well, why are we going to see Shazam 2? Obviously, it's not going anywhere. Zachary Levi has held out hope, apparently, that his franchise is going to be able to continue. We really didn't hear anything from The Rock to suggest that he is out as Black Adam, because the Snyderverse is apparently over. With the inside talk is that the Snyderverse characters are all over. But, of course, Shazam and Black Adam coming after it's quite possible that they could continue those franchises, but it's difficult now that Superman has been introduced in the Black Adam franchise. All right, let's see. I think the Trinity will be there in 2 to 3 years, and there to crime fighting slowly introduced other characters. Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen. I think I'd agree with that. Um, I don't, I think at some point you have to rip the Band-Aid off. I think at some point we knew the Snyderverse was dead. Nobody really liked it except for the Snyder Bros. The fandom at large, I guess I'll put it that way, really didn't take to these versions of these characters. We have a Batman that kills and brands as villains. We had Jesse Eisenberg as probably the worst incarnation of Luthor. Some would make the same case for Jared Leto as Joker. Obviously, something needed to change. We needed to have a better hand on these characters. Now, the fact that, well, they got Henry Cavill right with Superman, they got Margot Robbie right with Harley Quinn, they matched up these actors pretty well. That's the sad part. Even Amy Adams as Lois Lane. I really like Amy Adams' Lois Lane. I would have liked to see them try to carry on with some of these characters, but it's difficult because you have an aging cast on one hand, and then you're going to start over on the other with Batman being a young Batman. Now you bring him in where Superman is like 40. Again, you kind of have to start over from scratch, and I kind of understand that. So a lot of people are ranting and raving. They're really upset about Henry Cavill leaving. And I get you. I feel you. I think what the best case scenario would have been to do was to hold off on the franchise-wide reboot for 8 to 10 years. That's a long time to ask them to wait, but you would have given Wonder Woman a third and finished her trilogy. You would have gave Aquaman a third film to finish his trilogy. They probably were going to spin out, at least according to rumor, they were going to spin out Michael Keaton's Batman with Michelle Pfeiffer's Catwoman into a Batman Beyond film after The Flash, which would have been interesting. I think people would have liked to see that. Again, probably losing Linda Carter's return in Wonder Woman 3. I think you probably could have afforded to do all this. And then, of course, you give Henry Cavill his Man of Steel 2 / Black Adam meeting. You could have done that there, as to sort of give him his roses and could have sort of capped off the Snyderverse / whatever it turned out to be with that film. But again, then they just decided, let's not wait. Let's rip the bandage off and get it done. So I kind of understand that. I kind of feel them for this. I hate James Gunn. Games, movies, and comics are us. Thank you for joining the chat. I have to admit, I don't particularly like him either. Now, I mean, personally, there was the big, I don't want to get too much into his personal life. There was the big, scandal, so to speak. And I don't really want to get, what's the term, shadow banned or whatever by saying certain words. But, that kind of thing kind of follows you. And I can understand it's kind of a hard thing to overlook when you're seeing him now running an entire franchise, a beloved franchise. It is kind of difficult to see him being the man calling all the shots now. But I mean, he hasn't been convicted of anything. So I'm just going to let the chips fall where they may. And whatever in his personal life happens, it'll be brought to the surface eventually, I suppose. But apparently he's done no wrong. So I'm going to sort of just like err on the side of he hasn't been convicted of anything. But I mean, I don't particularly like James Gunn either. Now, on the other hand, though, his theatrical oeuvre or whatever way you want to phrase it, his catalog of films, let's say, for the layman, I don't really like what he's done. I didn't see The Suicide Squad because looking at the trailers, I knew I wasn't going to like it. I haven't watched Peacemaker because looking at the trailers, I knew I wasn't going to like it. I saw the first Guardians film and I liked it because it was, edgy and odd for the MCU. I don't particularly love that film the way a lot of people do. I just thought it was sort of a novelty, refreshing, something different. And I think he scored a legitimate hit there. But as I've said many times, as is the case with a lot of successful directors, when they bring in a big hit, they're giving carte blanche the rest of the way. And so when Guardians 2 came out and he was just allowed to do whatever he wanted, you could tell that studio reserve was a good thing, because it was just a very unpleasant movie to me, Guardians 2. It does rank among my least favorite of the MCU films. I don't think it was awful. Um, I could sit through it. I mean, it's not like I'll never watch that again, but I mean, it seemed very mean spirited. You got like Baby Groot going through child abuse. You have, apparently Peter Quill child abused by, oh, what's the guy with the blue face? I can't remember his name right now. And then you have, uh, what's that guy's name? The character Ego, again, sort of like a really, a really bad father figure. It's really an unpleasant film if you really watch it without looking at the haha moments of Drax and Rocket and stuff. But anyway, so to sort of put the final evaluation on this, I think what they're going to do going forward, they're probably going to try to restart the universe and hopefully, see, again, like I said, I don't have a lot of hope in the casting. I don't think they're going to really. I don't really think they're going to surpass. What they're probably going to do is get a lot of young actors that nobody's heard of, which is a good and bad thing. I don't really know. I mean, like I've said for a long time, Alexandra Daddario should be Wonder Woman. She'd be perfect as Wonder Woman. She's got the eyes. Again, I don't really know too many actors in the current day that are, pitch perfect for these characters in my mind. Like I said, James Marsden seems to me like a solid choice for Hal Jordan, but again, they're probably going to skewer younger. They're not going to do the mid 30s to 40s casting. Again, I think there's every possibility that James Gunn could screw it up by trying to get too funny and whimsical. So the problem with that is I'm thinking that he's going to probably try to do some more comic related storylines. But what's going to happen is you're going to have sort of the Batman Forever effect. You're going to have, well, he's going to do something jokey and it's going to come and look like Batman Forever. So people are going to be like, oh, that's terrible. I don't want to see that again. So you're not going to get a comic accurate, Mr. Freeze or something, because once you've seen the James Gunn Batman where he's doing something a little slapstick and goofy, it's going to put the kibosh on Robin, Batgirl, Mr. Freeze, all these characters that, the Schumacher film sort of put on the shelf for 20 years. I have a feeling that's kind of going to be what happens. And then we're going to have another reboot probably in 2035, let's say. They'll give him a good decade to see if he can get something going. But then if it does turn out like I'm thinking and we go in the other direction, then people are probably going to protest that. And then we're going to be back to where we are now, which is we'll take an auteur director with, delusions of the human condition and having to bring that to Batman and so on and so forth. And we still have a lot of Elseworld stuff going on, such as what's it called? Joker 2. They got that promo shot now out of Joker and what's her name? Lady Gaga. So they're still doing some Elseworld stuff. I think they're supposedly going to do the Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Superman story. I don't remember exactly what that is. Is that Cal L or something? I don't know. What is his name in that? So they are still doing Elseworld stuff, which makes it interesting. And I'm pretty sure they're going to continue on with Harley Quinn in her own corner of the universe, because I'm pretty sure we just heard recently that Margot Robbie wants to continue on and do a movie with Poison Ivy, because of course the cartoon is very popular. I can't stand the Poison Ivy Harley union in the comics or in the animated series. So they are going to probably push for that because Margot Robbie obviously has a name, and if she wants that, that's probably what she's going to get eventually. But also because it's so popular in the cartoon that they're at least going to try to do that. All right, let's see. Derpy 501 or 501st says, honestly, everyone mostly has to be casted under 35. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm expecting. I think that's what I'm expecting. Actually, 33. Under 30 mostly, but to a degree, most of age max would be 35. Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, that's what they're going to do. I don't know if necessarily that's what I would do, because when you look at it, my whole concern is everybody and their brother, their main objection is we don't want to see the origin again. We don't want to see the Waynes get killed. We don't want to see the rocket blasting off from Krypton. We don't want to see, Wonder Woman, I guess, on Paradise Island or whatever. The origins have been told and they want to just carry on. Now, I don't really mind that. I don't mind doing the origin, but people don't want to do that. So in lieu of that, I would probably start them around 30 or something like that and just say, look, they've been around for a few years. They've been around for at least 5 years and they know what they're doing. They've been on the job for a while. Continue on from there. That's probably not what they're going to do. Now, in a perfect world, I can agree with that, because you start maybe with them in their early 20s, and then you can have them last for like 20 years. You can have them without rebooting after when they get to be about 45 and you're like, well, they're getting a little long in the tooth. We got to reboot and get them younger again. Well, if you start like when they're 22, 23, you can get them to, reasonably be into their 40s before you start feeling that way. They've been around 20 years. Let's see. Hoping they could borrow intros from past cartoons in different DC eras to start the film. That would be interesting. That would be interesting. Should Joss Whedon get another chance? Joss Whedon. We'll see. Now, the thing with Joss Whedon is, I'll be honest in saying I'm one of like 5 people that liked his version of Justice League. I actually liked it a lot. I mean, there was things I didn't like about it. I'm not saying it was a perfect 5-star film. It was, it was maybe 3.5, 4 stars in my estimation. So I think he's got a good touch for these kind of properties. I wasn't crazy about Age of Ultron, which goes back to what I was saying. You sort of give a director carte blanche, and they kind of just put too much of their own spin on it. You do kind of need to have the studio there saying, look, you have to pay a little more respect to the characters. You have to, not be so interested in doing something avant-garde, so to speak. But and for his personal problems, I realize he's not a nice guy, if a lot of these accounts are true of what people say about him. And I don't particularly like him personally either. I mean, I said I didn't really like James Gunn personally. I don't really like Joss Whedon personally. But again, I kind of feel like you have to separate the art from the artist. Now, as long as he's not committed a crime or something, I mean, I believe you have to give the guy a shot. That's my opinion. That's it is what it is. Let's see. I kind of do if it's done right and written to where it's like DCEU that Paul Dini and Bruce Timm did. Now, that to me, that is where they made mistakes all along. Now, if they had gotten Dini and Timm early on and had made them the, well, what's the term for this? I was going to say showrunners, but it's movies, so it really wouldn't be showrunners. But you know what I mean? If they were the Kevin Feige, in other words, that James Gunn and Safran are, they would have really made a blockbuster universe at this point, because you take them straight off of the DCEU, put them into this like around 2000. That would have been something. That would have been amazing and remarkable. That's it's a sad thing. Now, some would complain that Tim maybe lost his step since then. He's done some weird things, like the Killing Joke animated movie where he's got Batgirl. He's got some kind of fetish for Batgirl and Batman, getting together, so to speak. But apart from that, you got those guys. They really did something special with the animated universe. I could see they could do something just as well if it was done right in live action. I like the 2017 version, but the tone writing was everywhere. Yeah. CEO or president. Yeah. Yep. Agreed. All right. Yeah. So again, just to put the cap on it, like I said, I kind of feel for Henry Cavill. I kind of think this was necessary. They maybe could have held off on it a little bit to just sort of, because they did sort of, the buildup was right there, 2 months ago of he's back, and everybody went to see Black Adam. Basically, everybody that did go to see Black Adam, of course, did so on the basis of Cavill's back. We're gonna get a new day in the DCEU, and we're gonna see Superman be a relevant part of it again. And now it's kind of we're back to wait and see, and that's the depressing thing, the disappointing thing, because again, I don't particularly have a lot of faith in James Gunn, and we're just gonna have to wait and see what he does. That's all there is to it. I want to thank my viewers here for a change. I've had a couple of viewers actually taking part in the chat. You're always welcome whenever I do a show. For those of you who don't know, I do a show every Saturday, at least I try to. Sometimes it gets bumped over to Sunday. Of course, the Christmas season, I haven't been able to do too many videos lately. But always welcome, and anytime anybody leaves a comment in the either in the chat or in the comments below, I always address it. And make sure you check out the links in the description below for my Twitter page. You can keep track of all the stuff I'm going to do with the comic. Of course, the comic, check out the website, The Adventures of Bullets, Bourbon, Private Eye. It's a all-ages action-adventure extravaganza about a down-on-his-luck private eye who takes on the most colorful collection of villains imaginable. All right, let's see. That was the obligatory pitch. I mean, if I were to start the Justice League movie and ending it with it's a mid-credit and end credit, this is how I would do it. Yeah, I can agree. When is your fan casting coming? That's a good question. Like I said, I honestly don't know, because I like I said, I imagine there needs to be young actors, and I'm not very good with that. What usually people will do, and I will take part in, is people will put together a list of, like they did with Spider-Man. They said Tom Holland, Asa Butterfield, I can't remember, and there was like 2 other guys, and I'll tell you who I think is the best of that list. That's probably the best thing that I can do, is look up what other people are saying, and I could probably, because I don't really know too many actors like under 30 really off the top of my head that are gonna, or at the very least around 30 that are gonna be, applicable for these roles. In that case with Spider-Man, I actually did pick Tom Holland, and he got the role. I thought he was the best of who was being promoted or whatever at that time for taking over Spider-Man. So again, I don't know exactly if I'm going to do a casting video, but yeah, I'll keep my eyes open out there. The DC Studios logo pops up. Super Friends theme slightly plays, but the opening of the film would be live action version of the Justice League film from the cartoon Paul Dini did. Yeah, I think they want to do something like for an opening like the Marvel opening thing like that. They want to do something like that. I've always said, well, I wouldn't say always, but I think they're sort of hesitant to lean back on older stuff in the DCEU. I would prefer, like, use the John Williams Superman theme, use the Danny Elfman Batman theme, but they sort of like just hide it in, and they're sort of like, well, we don't want people to really think too much about, and so if you want to use like the Justice League theme from that, or like for instance, the MCU, it's always fun when you get to hear them use Spider-Man theme from the cartoon, the X-Men theme from the cartoon. I think people are like, they almost expect it because it's so synonymous with the characters and the franchises. They kind of expect it. I don't know why they shy from that. They shy away from that so much, because I think that would really help. I mean, especially the Incredible Hulk theme. They used it like once in the Incredible Hulk film. That's a great theme, and you really get a feeling for. But see, that's the thing. They try to move away from that stuff. Like Superman, they're trying to modernize him. The Hulk, they're making him slapstick. It's, if you had that kind of character, it'd probably go well with those themes. Just give me the Watchtower. Yep, me too. I'd like to see it again. I really want to see a good Justice League film. I really want to see these characters get their due, and it seems like, I mean, let's be honest. I think both studios, the Marvel and DC, are both going through some tough times right now. You're going to have to wait and see, I guess, where they come out after all this, because, I mean, if this is played well, if they do right, if James Gunn does right in this plan, they could really be taking the, all the money off the table from the MCU, because the MCU is still playing with, the subs. They've got Falcon, Captain America. They've got, Kate Bishop, Hawkeye, I guess. I mean, they're going to be using their subs going forward. I seen on Twitter today, I don't know how true it is, but they're saying, basically the Avengers going forward is that it's going to be Sam Wilson, Kate Bishop, the jury's out on if Paul Rudd is back after Ant-Man 3. You never really know. The ending scene to the film would be similar scene from the ending of the 3 story arc episodes of Secret Origins where we get the Watchtower introduced. Yes, again. I would love to see it. Okay, so we've been going on about a little over a half hour here. I want to thank my chat. I want to thank all the viewers. And of course, if you're watching this on the rebroadcast, let me know in the comments below, what do you want to see going forward with the James Gunn verse, the new DCEU? Any casting suggestions that I can look into, and maybe I'll do another video on that. As I said earlier, this might be the last video I do this year. If so, I want to wish you all a Merry Christmas. I want to wish you all a very Happy New Year. I want to thank you all for joining us and supporting the channel. If you haven't already, please subscribe. Our sub count, for some reason, seems to be stalled. Even though we're getting a lot of subs, it doesn't seem to be showing up. So I don't know what to do about that. And please, if you haven't already, check out The Adventures of Bullets Bourbon Private Eye, our action-adventure comic book series. You can find the link in the description below. Mid-credit would make fun of Super Friends, but would get a live-action version of the opening, then make a joke. Well, that's funny. Let's see what happens. All right, we'll see you back next week, or I should say next year. Brainiac or Steppenwolf. Yeah. That'd be fun. I like to see that, yeah. All right, we'll see you back next week next year. Probably next year. I'll see if I can get back next week at our regularly scheduled time here on the only way to enjoy your day here with the Johnny Torch Live program. And until next we meet, this is Johnny Torch reminding you once again, keep the flame burning brightly, and I'll be with you again real soon.